China just bought 16 tons of gold in the month of May. Is that a big deal? We're going to talk about that in this video, but let me ask you, if you're at the neighborhood swimming pool, talking to your neighbors, and one of them brings up the fact that Joe Black, who you happen to know is like not the richest guy in the neighborhood, but maybe the second richest guy in the neighborhood. Well, the word is that Joe's been buying a lot of gold. Your ears would perk up. And we're going to talk about why your ears should also perk up because of the gold buys from China. We're also going to cover fascinating results of a survey of world central banks directly related to their views on precious metals. It's fascinating. And we have commentary from one of the world's top analysts in the precious metal sector, Mr. Tavi Costa. Let's get started right now. Are you ready for story time? What the heck? We got a giant teddy bear down here. And by the way, his blindfold comes off when gold hits $2,500. Not a moment sooner. I have an article for you from Kitco. Let me read you a few key points. Last month, China bought roughly 16 tons of gold, according to updated reserve data from the People's Bank of China, also known as the PBOC. We like to say that. This is the 7th consecutive month that China's central bank has bought gold. So think about that, guys. 7 consecutive months China has bought gold. And we're going to touch on why China is so important when it comes to looking at the precious metals. China has bought 144 tons of gold since it started its latest shopping spree in November. The central bank's total stockpiles now sit at about 2,000 tons, and many people think that number is underreported. I've heard all types of wild estimates as to how much gold China really has, multiples times higher than that. And for a point of reference, supposedly the United States has 8,000 tons at Fort Knox. Then they go on to say that the reason why gold has been quote-unquote elevated lately is because of all this central bank buying. The only problem I have with that is I don't think gold has really been elevated. Sure, it's been strong. Sure, it's near an all-time high. But I think we agree, right? The price of gold, the price of silver should actually be much, much higher. You don't have to be buying gold like the Chinese to join me in the basement. You are welcome here anytime. We love to talk about precious metals. We love to talk about silver, gold, what's going on in the world. Please subscribe to my channel and make sure you come back. Now you're probably asking, but why is China such a big deal, Ron? Well, let me give you a couple reasons why. China is now the world's second largest economy, not far behind the United States of America. But you also have to consider they're also one of the world's fastest growing economies. No one has grown like the Chinese over the last decade. And it grabs our attention even further when we consider that China is part of the BRICS nation, the big split that's going on in the world right now. The split that on the East is valuing things like gold, silver at a much higher level, right? They're talking about a new currency that will likely be backed by precious metals to one degree or another. So this continued gold buying by the Chinese is significant. Not to mention silver. We're getting reports that on the Shanghai Gold Exchange, the inventories of silver are being depleted as well, much like we're seeing at the COMEX in the United States and the LBMA in London, England. I think Tavi Costa is one of the sharpest analysts in the precious metal sector. He recently did an interview with Kitco, and let me tell you some interesting points that he brought up. He said, escalating geopolitical conflict has increased the importance of owning a neutral asset, with no counterparty risk. We know what counterparty risk is, right? That's the risk you take when you put your money in the bank, that the bank might fail, or you buy a stock, that the company may fail. When you own precious metals and you hold it yourself, there is no counterparty risk, and that appears to be not only attractive to people like you, but also the world central banks. It also carries centuries of credible history as a haven. Gold is the only asset that qualifies. He also added that through the 1970s, gold as a percentage of central bank reserve assets averaged about 40%. Today, the average is just above 15%. He noted that if gold reserves were to get back to levels last seen more than 50 years ago, 3.2 trillion would flow into the precious metals markets. And we know these stats, right? Like 0.5% of the world's financial assets are invested in gold and silver. The historical average is closer to 2%. That would be a 4 times increase in the amount of money coming into the metal sector just to get back to average levels. And isn't it interesting that big countries, growing countries like China, right, they're moving more toward precious metals. The money, the earth's money, God's money, whatever you want to call it, it's always been there as the base, as the foundation of the world's monetary system. The World Gold Council recently did a survey of the world central banks asking them about gold. Here's what we got. It revealed that 24% of those polled were looking to buy gold in the next 12 months. Quote, gold's historical position continues to be the top reason for central banks to hold gold, with 77% of respondents saying that it's highly relevant or somewhat relevant. This was followed by gold's performance during times of crisis. 74% of people voted for that. Long-term store of value or inflation hedge, another 74% number. Effective portfolio diversifier, 70%, and no default risk, 68%. When we look out at the trees, right, we see a lot of activity going on, a lot of little news stories in the silver and gold market. But when we put all those trees together, right, and then look at the forest, it looks very favorable for the silver price and the gold price. How do you see it? Do you see it that we have, sunny days ahead? When you look at that forest, do you see a big pot of gold and a big pot of silver sitting there? I know, I'm an enthusiast when it comes to precious metals. Just my opinion. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have an opinion, and I have a friend when you join me in the basement. Go watch a live stream and come back soon. Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Basement, live on the log flume with Lily. Lily, say hi.